And next thing we're going to do is we can talk about JavaScript and CSS. I've already talked about what these technologies are used for, how they impact the site. It's nothing out of the ordinary for a for a modern dynamic website. The question is, how do you actually get that on there? How do you return that HTML, or sorry, that JavaScript and that CSS to the user? Now, there's a couple ways you can do it. One, not recommended most of the time, but sometimes it's really unavoidable, is to include that CSS or that JavaScript directly in the body. We find you don't have to do that with CSS very often, but sometimes it has to be done with JavaScript. The reason being, as I mentioned before, we want to include keyword replacements in the JavaScript. So the JavaScript itself needs to know what the value of this ln high price is. It needs to know what CN value is. It needs to know what create sales order is. So for example, in here, create sales order, that tells you whether or not this user is allowed to actually place a sales order or whether they can only view product information. Again, similar, contact ID, want to make sure they're not anonymous. So in order to show the customer the add to cart button, the add to order sheet button, quantity box, basically this entire bottom section, we need to know that they're not anonymous, so actually they are logged in, and that they have the right to create a sales order. And then furthermore, we have to check here, if they're not anonymous and they are allowed to create a sales order, do we need to hide the price on them? And those are all just based on permissions in on the contact in the you can set through the console. Or in this case, they're often set upon integration based on the customer's specific customer class and so on, the segment potentially. So, however, there still are ways you can, like I said, that's why this is in JavaScript's embedded. And also sometimes it's done just during development in order to to make it faster to change rather than having to go and find an exterior file, make the change there, come back to the site, test, and then go and continue to make your iterative changes. It's much easier just to stick it in here. But our going forward, the standard, what we try to achieve, and I think is generally most would agree probably the best way to go about this, is try as much as possible to take this JavaScript, take the CSS, put them in external files. And you can achieve the same, you can put this in an external file and still achieve the ability to use database values to control behavior. But what you'll need to do is, rather than just stick it directly in the code, you need to make a hidden variable or something like that. For example, hidden variable like this one that you place in the HTML, and then you have your JavaScript access that hidden variable and use that to control behavior rather than embed the value directly into the JavaScript. This can have some other advantages as well. For example, if your replacement value, what comes back is actually kind of an unexpected format, maybe you're expecting an integer and it comes back as text or something like that, it's less likely to throw things off if you put it in a hidden value as opposed to if you put it directly in your JavaScript. So, that being said, if we're going to take this and we're going to put it in an exterior file, how do we make it available to us? So really the main way of doing that on the Stenz and J. Thomas sites is through what's called web page additions. So web page additions, what this does is this takes whatever you put in here and sticks it on the page outside of or on top of what the HTML already includes. I'll go into this in more detail, but the point later. But the main point is, if you know you want the CSS, it's only going on the search page, rather than attach it to the shell or somewhere else. You just put in web page additions here. That'll automatically be populated in the header, and now that CSS is available for use on this page.